are we alone?
It's the big one.
It is, isn't it? It's the question that just, it hangs in the air.
Yeah.
It's the one that you think about when you're looking up at a clear night sky away from all the city lights.
And you just get dizzy, the sheer scale of it.
Yeah, dizzy is the right word. It's this single question that has driven so much of human history. It's why we build these colossal telescopes and why we send billion-dollar robots to other planets.
It is the ultimate question. And what's so fascinating is how it connects everything. It's biology, of course. It's physics. It's philosophy, theology.
But usually when we talk about it, we're looking at it through a very specific, a very scientific lens.
Right. We're talking about the Drake equation or the Fermi paradox. We're looking for radio signals or analyzing the chemical signature of a distant planet's atmosphere.
We're looking for data, for hard evidence.
Yeah.
But today, for this deep dive, we're going to do something, well, something pretty different. We're taking that scientific lens, but we're laying it over a text from the 7th century.
We are. We're bridging modern astrobiology, the actual search for life beyond Earth, with Islamic theology and specifically the Qur'an.
Which, I've got to say, sounds a little like sci-fi meets scripture. For a lot of people, those two things are not just in different rooms, they're in, completely different buildings.
It can feel that way. It sounds like a clash. Faith on one side, empirical evidence on the other. But the sources we're looking at today suggest it's more of a convergence.
Okay, so what are the sources? Let's lay them out.
We're looking at a 2023 proceeding from the International Conference on Religion, Science, and Education. It's a paper called Life on Planets Other Than Earth. And we're pairing that with a really detailed analytical article by Joseph A. Islam titled, Do Aliens Exist?
And the mission here, just so everyone is clear, is really specific. We're not looking for vague metaphors. We're asking if specific Quranic verses might actually predict or even confirm the existence of biological physical life out there in the universe.
And not just that, but how those ancient verses seem to align with very recent, very real discoveries. I'm talking about the data we're getting back about water on Mars and Jupiter's moons.
That's the part that really hooked me. You have hard data from NASA on one side, and on the other you have, linguistic analysis of 1,400-year-old classical Arabic?
And they seem to be pointing in the same direction. It's a fascinating juxtaposition.
All right, I'm skeptical, but I'm ready to get into it. Before we dive into the linguistic detective work, though, we have to set the stage, scientifically, because our whole view of the universe has just been turned on its head in the last century.
Oh, absolutely. The shift is monumental. I mean, think about it. In the mid-20th century, space was still mostly theory. It was for pulp magazines and dreamers.
Right, Buck Rogers stuff.
Exactly. But then came the space race. The Cold War pushed technology forward so fast it's almost unbelievable. And suddenly, space isn't just a backdrop anymore, it's a destination.
Neil Armstrong walks on the moon.
And that shatters the psychological barrier. We went from just looking at space to actually going to space. From fantasy to, as you said before we started, geography.
And at the same time, our theoretical understanding was just exploding. Our sources touch on this, things like M-theory and Stephen Hawking's work.
Yes, and this is crucial because it fundamentally changes the odds.
Okay, hold on. M-theory. I hear that thrown around a lot. Why is a theory about the fundamental structure of the universe important for finding, little green men?
Because it redefines what rare means. The old argument was that Earth is a souk. The conditions are so perfect, so ridiculously improbable, that could only happen once.
The pale blue dot idea, a lonely accident.
Precisely. But Hawking and M-theory propose that the universe isn't a single event with a single history. They see it as a quantum event. M-theory predicts that our universe might just be one bubble in a boiling pot of other universes, all spontaneously popping into existence.
The multiverse.
The multiverse. So if you have an infinite number of universes...
You have an infinite number of chances for life to arise.
Exactly. Yeah. The odds of us being the only ones drop to pretty much zero. It means we're less special, maybe, but the cosmos becomes infinitely more interesting.
Okay, that's the mind-bending big picture stuff. But let's dial it back to our own solar system, our own neighborhood, because even here, we have to know what we're looking for, the Goldilocks conditions.
Right. Not too hot, not too cold. Just right.
I remember that from school, but it's more than just temperature, isn't it?
Oh, much more. Life as we know it is just complex chemistry. And for that chemistry to work, you need a very specific checklist. First, you need a solvent, something for molecules to dissolve in and move around and react. On Earth, that's liquid water.
The universal solvent.
It's perfect for the job. Second, you need the right building blocks, the essential elements, Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. The stuff of life.
And then the temperature, the Goldilocks part.
Right. Too hot, and the complex molecules like proteins literally cook and fall apart. Too cold, and everything freezes solid. All the chemical reactions just stop. It's a delicate balance.
So with that checklist in mind, water, elements, temperature, our sources take us on a tour of our solar system, and they start with a place I think most of us have written off completely, Venus.
Venus is. It's a tragic story, really, a cautionary tale.
Tragic for a planet.
Well, look at it today. It's the most hostile place you can imagine. The surface temperature is over 470 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead. The atmospheric pressure is 90 times that of Earth's.
It would crush a submarine.
Instantly. And the atmosphere is almost pure carbon dioxide with clouds of sulfuric acid. It's hell.
So why are we even talking about it in the context of life?
Because of its past. The Force paper points to one incredible specific detail. We found evidence of granite on Venus.
Granite, you mean like a kitchen countertop? What's so special about that?
It's special because, on Earth at least, you don't get granite without two things: plate tectonics and large amounts of liquid water.
Wait, really? How does that work? I just thought it was the type of rock.
It is, but it's a very specific kind. You see, most volcanic rock is basalt. That's what you get on the ocean floor or in Hawaii. To make granite, you need to remelt rock that's already part of a continent, and you need water mixed in. Water gets dragged down to the mantle at subduction zones, where one tectonic plate slides under another. That water changes the chemistry. It lowers the melting point of the rock and allows the lighter elements, like silica, to separate out.
So no water, no plate tectonics, no granite.
Generally speaking, that's the case. So finding these huge plateaus on Venus that appear to be made of granite is like, it's like finding the fossil of an ocean. It's a huge clue that Venus wasn't always this inferno.
So billions of years ago, it could have been like Earth.
A twin to Earth. It likely had vast oceans, a temperate climate, and plate tectonics. The theory is that it was habitable long before Earth was. It could have hosted life, which was then wiped out by a runaway greenhouse effect.
Wow. So the first alien life in our solar system might have been on Venus, and we just missed it by a billion years.
It's entirely possible. It forces us to ask not just, is there life, but also, was there life?
Okay, so that's Venus, the lost world. Now let's go to the main event, the one everyone's obsessed with, Mars.
The red planet. And for good reason. We have thrown so much of our best technology at it. And the Curiosity rover, in particular, sent back something that just changed the game.
And it wasn't a fossil or an alien artifact, it was pebbles.
It sounds so boring, doesn't it? Just some pebbles. But it's all about the context. Curiosity was exploring Gale Crater, and it found these rocks called conglomerates. Basically, a bunch of smaller rocks and pebbles all cemented together.
Okay.
But the pebbles inside were smooth. They were rounded.
Oh, like river stones.
Exactly. If you find a rock at the bottom of a cliff, it's sharp and jagged. But if you pick one up from a riverbed, it's smooth. Why?
Because it's been tumbling in the water, banging against other rocks for thousands of years. The friction wears down the edges.
Precisely. And by measuring the size and shape of these Martian pebbles, scientists could actually calculate the properties of the water that shaped them. They weren't just sitting in a puddle. This was a flowing stream, moving at about 3 meters per second. And it was anywhere from ankle deep to hip deep.
That's a real river. You could wade in that. That's not just a damp patch, that's a flowing body of water.
It's undeniable proof of sustained flowing surface water in Mars's past. But it gets even better, because we're not just talking about the ancient past.
You mean there might still be water there now?
A lot of it.
Yeah.
The sources highlight estimates of huge subsurface water sources, maybe 100 to 400 meters underground. And then there was the Phoenix lander back in 2008.
Right, that's the one that landed up near the northern pole.
Yes, and it had a little robotic scoop. It dug a trench, and underneath the top layer of reddish soil, it uncovered these bright white chunks. They were pretty sure it was ice. But the proof was in watching it. They just pointed the camera at the trench, and over a few days, they watched those white chunks disappear. They didn't melt into a puddle. They sublimated. They turned from solid directly into gas.
Which only water ice does under those conditions.
Exactly. The probe literally touched water on Mars, and the surrounding soil was far wetter than anyone had predicted.
And this all leads to the big one, the really controversial piece of evidence, the meteorite, ALH 84,001.
Ah, yes. the rock that launched 1,000 scientific papers and probably just as many arguments.
So the story is this rock was found in Antarctica, right? But it's actually from
Yes,
Mars.
its chemical composition is a perfect match for Martian geology. The theory is that a massive asteroid hit Mars millions of years ago, blasting chunks of the planet out into space. This one drifted for a very long time before its orbit intersected with Earth's and it landed in the ice.
And in 1996, scientists announced they'd found something inside it.
They did. They found these tiny carbonate globules, and inside them, structures that looked, well, they looked like microscopic fossilized worms.
Actual Martian fossils.
That was the claim. They called them nanobacteria, or biomorphs. Tiny, segmented, chain-like structures that looked eerily biological.
But it's debated.
Fiercely debated. The main counterargument is that these shapes, while they look like life, could potentially be formed by non-biological geological processes. They're also much smaller than any known bacteria on Earth.
It's not a slam dunk.
It's not. But for the authors of our sources, it's a major piece of circumstantial evidence. If those are fossils, then life on Mars is not a theory. It's a fact.
Okay, so we've got a potentially formerly habitable Venus and a Mars that was definitely wet and possibly had microbial life. But the real excitement these days seems to be even further out.
That's where the paradigm has really shifted. We used to think the habitable zone was a pretty narrow band close to the sun, but now we're looking at the moons of the gas giants, specifically Jupiter's moon, Europa.
Europa. The one that looks like a cracked egg. It's covered in ice.
Covered in a thick shell of ice, yes. But underneath that ice, that's where things get interesting. It's arguably the most promising place to find currently existing life in our solar system.
But how? It's so far from the sun. It must be unimaginably cold.
It is on the surface, but Europa is in a constant gravitational tug-of-war with the massive planet Jupiter. As it orbits, it gets stretched and squeezed. It's a process called tidal flexing.
Okay.
Think of taking a metal paperclip and bending it back and forth really fast. What happens?
It gets hot.
Right. Friction creates heat. The same thing is happening to Europa's core. That constant squeezing generates enough internal heat to melt the ice from the bottom up. So what you have is a frozen surface, and underneath it, a global ocean of liquid, salty water.
A dark ocean miles beneath the ice.
A dark interior ocean, kept warm not by sunlight, but by tidal forces. And we see on Earth that life can thrive without sunlight. Think of the hydrothermal vents on our ocean floors. They're teeming with life that runs on chemical energy, not solar energy.
So there could be entire ecosystems down there in the dark on Europa.
The source even speculates it could be more than just microbes. If there are volcanic vents providing nutrients and energy, you could potentially have larger, more complex organisms.
You're talking about, like, alien fish.
Theoretically, yes. Fish-like creatures, or something analogous, swimming in a pitch-black ocean a 500 million miles from Earth. It's an incredible thought.
It's terrifying and amazing at the same time. And Europa isn't the only one, right?
No. Ganymede, Jupiter's largest moon, also shows strong evidence of a subsurface saltwater ocean, maybe buried even deeper, sandwiched between layers of ice. And then you have Io.
What about Io?
Io is sort of the control case. It's also squeezed by Jupiter, but it's too close. The tidal forces are too extreme. It's the most volcanically active body in the solar system, with over 400 active volcanoes. It has plenty of energy and even some oxygen, but it lacks hydrogen. There's no water.
So no water, no life.
Likely no life. It's the perfect illustration of the rule. You need the solvent.
Okay, so that's the scientific backdrop. It feels like the universe is just screaming at us that the ingredients for life, especially water, are everywhere.
And that is the perfect pivot to the second half of this deep dive. Because if modern science is shouting, follow the water, the sources we're looking at argue that the Qur'an was whispering it 14 centuries ago.
This is where we put on our linguistic hats, and I want to be the skeptic here for a moment because it's very easy to take ancient texts and, find patterns that aren't really there. The big question is, does the Quran explicitly mention biological aliens? Not spirits, not angels, physical creatures.
That is the million-dollar question. And according to these scholars, the answer hinges on a single, very specific, very important Arabic word. Daba.
Daba. Okay, let's break it down. What does it actually mean?
It comes from the Arabic root dalbaba. At its core, it's about a specific type of movement. It means to go gently, to creep, to crawl, to walk. It implies a physical body making contact with the surface.
So like insects, animals.
Exactly. In the Quran, daba is used to refer to all sorts of biological life. Insects, beasts of burden, quadrupeds, and even human beings in the context of being creatures that walk upon the earth.
Things with legs, things that scuttle.
Things with corporeal, biological bodies. And this is the crucial distinction, the real aha moment in the analysis. The sources argue very strongly that Daba cannot refer to angels.
Okay, why not? An angel is a creature, isn't it?
Not in the same sense. In Islamic theology, angels, or malaika, are a distinct class of being. They're created from light, they have wings, they fly, they aren't bound by the same physical laws, they don't crawl on the ground, they don't have feet that tread the earth. Dava implies a creature of water and clay, something with mass and a physical form in our sense of the word.
So the word choice is incredibly specific. If the text meant angels, it would have used the word for angels.
It would have used malaika. If it meant spirits, it might have used ruh or jinn. But it uses daba, the word for a biological crawler.
So if we find the word daba being used to describe something that exists somewhere other than Earth,
Then you have a textual confirmation of extraterrestrial biological life. Which brings us to the second key word, samawat.
the heavens. Now, my first thought when I hear that is, the afterlife, paradise.
A very common interpretation. But in this context, the sources argue that samawat, which is a plural form, doesn't mean the spiritual heaven. It refers to the physical cosmos, the skies, the universe, outer space. It's the physical structure that contains the stars and planets.
So we have Daba, the biological creatures, and Samawat, the universe. So where do they come together?
This is what the sources call the smoking gun verses. And the most direct one is in Surah Ashura, chapter 42, verse 29.
I have it right here. It says, "And one of his signs is the creation of the heavens and the earth, and what he has spread forth in both of them of living beings." Min Daba.
Just stop there. That phrase, in both of them. The Arabic is fihima.
In both of them, in the heavens and the earth.
That is the entire argument in a nutshell. The verse is not ambiguous. It doesn't say on earth and then angels in the heavens. It says God has spread daba, these crawling biological creatures, in both domains, on earth and throughout the cosmos.
Spread forth. It sounds so deliberate, like a farmer scattering seeds.
It paints a picture of a populated universe, doesn't it? That life isn't an isolated anomaly here on earth, but a feature of the cosmos itself.
It's a huge claim. And the verse keeps going. It says, "And he is all-powerful to gather them together when he wills."
Yes. And the analysis of that phrase is just as fascinating. Gather them together.
A meeting.
The sources argue that this points to a potential future event, a point of contact. It implies that these scattered communities of life, us on Earth and the other Daba out there, are not necessarily destined to be isolated forever. The power to bring them together exists.
Wow. That's basically predicting first contact, conditioned on divine will. That's incredible.
It's a profound statement. It moves the idea of alien life from mere existence to potential interaction.
Okay, but this can't be the only verse, right? A claim this big has to have more support in the text. Is this interpretation backed up elsewhere?
It is. The sources point to Surah An-Nahl, chapter 16, verse 49, as another key piece of evidence. This one is all about grammar and classification.
Okay, let's hear it.
The verse says, "And to Allah alone bow down all that is in the heavens and all the creatures that move on the earth and also the angels."
Okay, I think I see it already. It lists them as separate things.
Exactly. It's a grammatical separation. It presents a list of worshipers. First, all that is in the heavens. Second, all the creatures, Daba, that move on the earth. And third, tacked on at the end, and also the angels, Malagika.
So if the things in the heavens were just the angels, it would be redundant to add "and also the angels" at the end.
It would be like saying all the people in this room, and also Bob, when Bob is one of the people in the room.
Duh.
It makes no grammatical sense. By separating the angels out, the text is explicitly stating that there are other beings in the heavens that are not angels.
Beings that worship. And based on the other verse, these would be the Daba of the heavens.
That's the logical conclusion drawn by the sources. You have a category of non-angelic, heaven-dwelling beings.
Which raises the next question. Are we just talking about, space microbes? Or something more? Are they intelligible?
And that's where pronoun usage becomes very important. The source by Joseph Islam points to two other verses, Surah Al-Isra and Surah Maryam. They both talk about everyone in the heavens and earth coming to God as a servant.
Everyone.
Yes, but the key is the Arabic pronoun used for everyone. It's the word man.
Man. Spelled M-A-N.
That's the phonetic spelling, yes. In Arabic, man translates to who or whoever, and it is almost exclusively used to refer to rational, intelligent beings that have free will. beings with volition,
Like humans.
like humans. If the text were referring to animals or inanimate objects or just generic things, it would typically use the pronoun ma, which means what? The fact that he uses man for the inhabitants of the heavens implies that they are intelligent. They are persons,
Conscious beings who can choose to be servants.
beings with a will, a consciousness, and a relationship with the divine. So the picture being painted is not of primordial ooze, but of intelligent extraterrestrial life.
This is a lot to take in.
Yeah.
We've gone from pebbles on Mars to intelligent beings in the heavens based on grammar. And this leads to what was, for me, the most mind-bending part of this whole deep dive.
I think I know what you're talking about, the theological mystery.
Yes, the story of the creation of Adam. It's in Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verse 30. And it contains a detail that I had just never considered before.
It's a foundational scene. God gathers the angels and makes an announcement. He says, I'm going to place a vicegerent, a Khalifa, on earth.
A steward, a successor, humanity, and the angel's reaction is, it's shocking, really.
Good.
They immediately ask, will you place in it one who will spread corruption and shed blood?
A stunning question. And the logical puzzle is, as you said earlier, how on earth did they know that?
Exactly. Let's think about the timeline here. At that moment in the story, humans don't exist. Adam hasn't been created yet. The concept of murder doesn't exist. Satan hasn't rebelled. There's no precedent for sin.
And crucially, in Islamic theology, angels do not possess knowledge of the unseen. They aren't prophets. They only know what God tells them. So this wasn't a prophecy.
So where did this idea of corruption and bloodshed come from? How did they make that leap?
The traditional interpretation, as you mentioned, sometimes points to the jinn, who may have inhabited Earth before humans. But the source here questions that. The phrase shed blood is so visceral, so biological. Do beings of smokeless fire like the jinn even have blood to shed? It seems to point to a biological creature.
So if it wasn't a prophecy and it wasn't the jinn, what's the alternative?
The source offers an extraterrestrial hypothesis. It suggests the angels weren't predicting the future, they were recalling the past.
They were speaking from experience.
Prior experience. The argument is that the angels had seen this story play out before on other worlds with other intelligent species.
Wait, so when God says, I'm about to create a vicegerent with free will on this planet, the angels are essentially sighing and saying, oh, here we go again. We've seen what these types do. They always end up fighting and killing each other.
It gives them a frame of reference. It explains their seemingly prophetic knowledge without breaking the rule that they don't know the future. They weren't seeing the future of humanity. They were remembering the history of other civilizations in the cosmos.
That completely changes the scope of everything. It implies a universe that isn't just populated now, but has been for a very long time. Long enough for civilizations to rise and fall, to have histories of war and corruption that predate humanity entirely.
We might not be the first draft. We might just be the latest in a long series of experiments in creating intelligent, free-willed life.
And that idea connects everything back to the science we started with, because if these other civilizations existed, they would have needed a place to live. And what's the one non-negotiable ingredient we keep coming back to?
Water.
Water. It's the unifying element.
It is. It ties the scientific search directly to the scriptural narrative. The source brings up that powerful verse from Surah Al-Anbiya, chapter 21, verse 30. We created everything living out of water.
A statement so simple and yet so profound, it's the foundational principle of astrobiology. NASA's mantra for decades has been, follow the water.
Because if you find liquid water, you find the potential for life. It's a biomarker we look for above all others. And this is why the authors of these sources see the discoveries on Mars and Europa as so significant.
They're not just scientific data points.
To them, they are a form of theological validation. When we find the remnants of a riverbed on Mars or confirm a vast liquid ocean on Europa, it reinforces the Quranic principle that life is fundamentally tied to water wherever you find it.
It makes life feel less like a fluke and more like a predictable universal constant. If the condition water is met, the outcome life follows.
And that very same verse, 21.3, and goes even further. It ties the origin of life directly to the origin of the universe.
Right, it talks about the Big Bang.
Or something remarkably analogous. It says the heavens and the earth were once a single entity, a solid mass, Ratquan, and then God tore them apart or separated them, Fatakuma.
So in one short verse, you get the singularity, the expansion of the universe, and the hydrocentric origin of all life.
It's an incredibly dense and potent piece of scripture, and it serves as the philosophical backbone connecting all these threads.
Which brings us to the sheer scale of all this. Because if life is common and the universe is as vast as we now know it is, it really puts humanity in its place.
It's humbling, to say the least. The source mentions the 2013 data from the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. Just in our own Milky Way galaxy, there are an estimated 17 billion Earth-sized planets.
17 billion in our galaxy alone, and there are hundreds of billions of galaxies. The numbers are they're meaningless, they're so big.
The Qur'an speaks of 7 heavens, and of the lowest heaven being adorned with lamps, or masabi.
The
stars and suns. It uses this poetic language to describe a vast, structured cosmos. But then it delivers a line that is anything but poetic. It's a direct statement of our place in the hierarchy.
You're talking about Surah Ghafir 40.57.
I am. It says very clearly, the creation of the heavens and the earth is definitely a greater thing than the creation of mankind.
That's a huge blow to the human ego.
It's meant to be. For most of history, we've had this geocentric, anthropocentric view. We thought the entire universe literally revolved around us. We were the pinnacle, the whole point of creation.
And science has been a story of slowly being pushed away from the center of things.
Copernicus moved the Earth, Hubble moved our galaxy, and now astrobiology and this interpretation of the Quran threaten to remove our status as the only thinking beings. The text supports that humility. It tells us to look up at the cosmos and understand that it is a far grander, more complex, and more significant creation than we are.
We're a part of the story, not the whole story.
We are citizens of a vast and populated universe, not the lonely kings of an empty castle.
Okay, let's try to pull all of these threads together as we wrap up. We've covered a huge amount of ground here.
We certainly have.
We started with the science, the physical evidence. We talked about the monumental shift in our understanding of space. We looked at the rounded pebbles on Mars, the water ice under the soil, and the potential fossils in a meteorite.
And the dark oceans of Europa and Ganymede kept liquid by the heat of gravity itself. The solar system is a much wetter, more promising place than we ever thought.
Then we dove into the linguistics, the critical distinction between the word daba, the biological crawling creature, and malaika, the angels.
And how the text explicitly places Daba in the Samawat, in the heavens, and grammatically separates them from the angels, creating a distinct category for extraterrestrial life.
Intelligent life, based on the pronoun usage.
Intelligent life, yes. And that led us to the final pillar, the theological deduction, the mystery of the angels' foreknowledge.
How they knew that creating humans would lead to bloodshed, the chilling hypothesis that they knew because they had seen it happen before, with other civilizations on other worlds.
A universe with a history that predates our own.
It's an incredibly cohesive argument. And for me, the most powerful thing about it is how it doesn't pit science and faith against each other. It lays them side by side.
And shows that they're pointing in the same direction. In a time when these two ways of knowing are so often seen as being in conflict, this whole deep dive suggests they can be two maps of the same territory. A territory that is vast, ancient, water-based, and full of life.
It really does change how you see the night sky. It's not an empty void. It's a populated space. It's a neighborhood.
A very, very large neighborhood.
So I want to end with a final provocative thought for you to take away, and it goes back to that first verse we analyzed from Surah Ashura.
The one that mentions the gathering.
Exactly. Verse 42.29. It ends by saying that God has the power to gather them together, us and the extraterrestrial Daba, when he wills. The sources see this as a potential future meeting, first contact.
A monumental possibility.
But let's combine that possibility with the angel's warning. When God announced he was making us, their immediate instinctive reaction was they're going to cause corruption, they're going to shed blood. That was their profile for a species like ours.
A species with free will.
Yes. So if that gathering ever happens, if we finally meet one of these other civilizations out among the stars, we always frame it from our perspective. We worry about them being hostile. Every movie is about an alien invasion.
We're afraid of what they might do to us.
Right. But what if the angels were right? What if their prior experience taught them that beings like us are inherently dangerous? When that day comes, are we sure we're the good guys? Or are we the violent, blood-shedding species that the rest of the universe has been warned about?
A chilling thought. Perhaps the great silence of the universe isn't because no one is out there.
Maybe they're just hiding from us. Something to think about. Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive.
We'll see you next time.